There is a little tree sitting on my balcony right now, in a 5-gallon bucket catching the morning sun. If you looked at it quick, you would think it was just one tree. But it is not. The bottom of that tree is one kind of pear. And the top of that tree, the part making fruit this year, is a completely different pear that I added myself with a sharp knife and a strip of tape. 2 plants, growing as one, sharing the same set of roots. At the nursery, a named fruit tree like that one runs you $50, $60, sometimes $70. Mine cost me about the price of that roll of tape. Now, I used to think grafting was something only orchard men in overalls knew how to do. It honestly scared me. Then, I learned the whole thing comes down to lining up one thin green line, thinner than a piece of thread, hiding just under the bark. Stay with me all the way to the end, because that green line is the difference between a graft that takes and grows for 30 years and one that just sits there and rots on you. Almost nobody explains it. I am going to. I'm Jake, though most folks just call me your backyard buddy. 3 years ago, I was the fellow who killed houseplants. And I once managed to kill a cactus, which takes real commitment. Then, a bunch of green onion ends I tossed at the trash can missed, landed in a glass of water, and 3 days later, they sprouted bright green shoots out of nothing. Since then, I have regrown hundreds of plants from kitchen scraps on my windowsills and this little balcony, and my grocery bill has dropped by nearly a third. My neighbor Gloria, a retired school teacher 2 floors up, has been growing on her own balcony for 20 years, and she is the one who finally talked me into trying this. So if a recovering cactus killer with no yard can graft a fruit tree in a bucket, I promise you can too. So why go through all this instead of just planting a seed? Because a seed from a good pear does not grow up to be that same good pear. It is a gamble. You could wait 7 whole years for a tree that finally makes fruit the size of a marble that nobody wants to eat. That is the honest reason folks call grafting the proper way. Grafting lets you take a branch from a pear you already know tastes wonderful and put it onto a set of roots that is tough or small enough for a bucket and get that exact same wonderful fruit. Now, a couple of these 4 are more forgiving than the others. Figs and grapes will often grow from a plain cutting stuck in water or dirt, and I will show you that too, because free is free. But pears and kiwis really do want a graft to give you the good stuff. A named fruit tree at the nursery runs $50 to $70. The knife you probably already own, and a roll of grafting tape is a few dollars and lasts you years. And every single one of these 4, the pear, the grape, the fig, and the kiwi, lives or dies by that one green line I told you about. Hold on to that thought. Now, before I put a knife to that first branch, let me tell you where all of this lives in one place. Everything I show you here, and a whole lot more, is in a book I put together called The 30-Day Kitchen Scrap Garden Protocol. It is written for the absolute beginner, the person with no yard, no experience, and close to no budget, in the same walk-you-through-it way I talk to you here. Inside, there are 31 different plants you can grow from the scraps your kitchen already throws away, each one with its own plain instructions. There's a $10 starter kit made mostly from things you already own, and a 30-day plan that takes you from your first glass of water to your first harvests on the windowsill. It is $17 right now, marked down from $47. That is $17 one time against a grocery bill that gets a little smaller every single week after. If you would like a copy, getting it is easy. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. All right, let me show you the tools first, because you truly need almost nothing. You need one knife, and it has to be 2 things. It has to be sharp enough to shave the hair on your arm, and it has to be clean. A real grafting knife is nice, but a fresh utility blade wiped with rubbing alcohol works just fine. A dull or dirty knife is the #1 reason a first graft fails, so take 1 minute and get it sharp and clean before you start. Next, you want grafting tape or a stretchy rubber grafting strip to hold everything tight. Then, you want a little grafting sealant or grafting wax to cover the cuts. And that is it for tools. The 2 plant pieces you need are the scion wood, which is just a small cutting from the fruit you want, and the rootstock, which is the young plant that gives the roots. The scion makes the fruit up top. The rootstock makes the roots down below. Put them together the right way, and they become one tree for the rest of their lives. So here's the whole idea behind every graft you will ever do. You are lining up 2 living plants so their growing tissue can knit together and heal into one. That growing tissue is a thin layer called the cambium, and it sits right underneath the bark. It is that green line I keep mentioning. When cambium touches cambium, the 2 pieces fuse and start sharing water and food. When it does not touch, nothing heals, and the top piece slowly dries out and dies. So that is the what. Now let me show you the why, step by step, and I will come back to that green line at the end, because it is the whole reason any of this works. Let me talk about timing, because grafting most fruit is a cold weather job with a spring finish. You collect your scion wood in the dead of winter, when the tree is fully asleep and bare. You want a piece about as thick as a pencil, healthy and smooth, with 3 or 4 fat buds on it. That is 3 or 4 buds, no more than you need. You keep that little stick cool and slightly moist, wrapped in a damp paper towel inside a bag in the refrigerator until the roots are ready to wake up. Then, in early spring, when the buds on your rootstock just begin to swell but have not opened yet, that is your window. The sleeping scion goes onto the waking rootstock. The rootstock pushes sap up, and it heals your graft for you while it grows. Now you might be wondering where a beginner even gets these 2 pieces. The rootstock is the easy part. Any decent nursery or a mail-order fruit catalog sells young rootstock for a few dollars. And for pears, you can even sprout your own from the seeds inside a store-bought pear, just to use as roots down below. The scion wood is where it gets neighborly. A cutting from a friend's tree, a swap at the community garden, or 1 branch from a kind neighbor's pear or fig is all you need. And most folks are tickled to share a stick in winter when they are pruning anyway. Just ask first. Cut a clean, pencil-thick piece with 3 or 4 buds and label it so you remember what it is. Gloria filled half her balcony this way, 1 shared cutting at a time. Now for the pear, and this is the one most folks come here to learn. So I'm going to go slow. We are going to use what is called a whip and tongue graft. First, pick a scion and a spot on your rootstock that are the same thickness, both about like a pencil. Matching the thickness is what makes this graft so strong, so take a second to find a good match. Make 1 long, smooth, slanting cut across the bottom of your scion, about 1 to 2 inches long. 1 clean slice, not a sawing motion, because a smooth cut heals and a ragged cut rots. That is 1 to 2 inches, and try to do it in a single stroke. Now make the exact same slanting cut on the top of your rootstock, so the 2 flat faces will lay together like 2 ramps meeting. Here comes the tongue part, and it is easier than it sounds. On the cut face of the scion, make a small downward slit, about 1/3 of the way up the slant, so you create a little flap. Do the same little slit on the rootstock face. Now slide the 2 pieces together so those 2 little tongues hook into each other and lock. This is where most folks go wrong, so listen close. You must line up the green cambium, that thin line just under the bark, on at least 1 side. If your 2 pieces are not a perfect match in size, do not panic. Just make sure 1 side lines up green to green. Once they are locked and lined up, wrap the whole joint firmly with your grafting tape, going up and down until no cut is showing. Then dab a little sealant over the very top of the scion so it cannot dry out. Take your time with the wrap. There is no rush. Here is the part that turns a pear graft into something special. You do not have to stop at one variety. Once you are comfortable with that whip and tongue cut, you can put 3 or 4 different kinds of pear onto the very same tree, each on its own branch. Gloria taught me this one, and it is my favorite trick of the whole bunch. Pears usually need a second variety nearby to pollinate and set fruit, so a tree carrying several kinds pollinates its own self right there in the bucket. And it means one small tree can give you an early pear, a late pear, and a keeping pear, all season long. For the roots, ask a nursery for a pear rootstock or a quince rootstock if you want the tree to stay small. That quince root is what keeps a full-sized pear polite enough to live in a 5-gallon bucket on a balcony like mine. A yard gives it more room, sure, but it has never once been required. Now that handles the pear. But it leaves you with a different plant that behaves its own way, and that is the grape. Grapes are grafted for a simple reason. The tasty grape you want to eat often grows on weak or fussy roots, so growers marry it to a tough, disease-resistant root that shrugs off the pests in the soil. You use that same whip and tongue cut you just learned, only now you are joining 2 dormant, pencil-thick grape canes in late winter. A job the old-timers call bench grafting, because you do it sitting at a bench, out of the weather. Same slanting cuts, same little tongues, same green line lined up, same firm wrap. But here's the honest part I promised you. If you do not need those special tough roots, a grape is one of the easiest plants alive to grow from a plain cutting. Take a pencil-thick piece of dormant grapevine with a few buds, stick the bottom couple inches down in damp soil, keep it moist, and most of the time, it just roots and grows into a whole new vine. No graft needed. That right there is not garbage. That is groceries from a stick you would have thrown on the brush pile. That brings me to the fig, and the fig has a secret that most grafting videos will not tell you. You almost never need to graft a fig at all. Figs root so easily that a plain cutting, a piece of woody stem about as thick as your finger, will grow roots in a jar of water or a pot of soil just about every time. One cutting on a windowsill becomes a whole free fig tree, and that is the honest, easiest path for most of you. So when would you ever graft a fig? Only for one reason. If you already have a fig tree and you taste a neighbor's fig that is far better than yours, you can graft a branch of theirs onto your existing tree and change what it makes. For that, you use a graft called a cleft graft. You saw off a branch clean, you split the cut end down the middle about 2 inches, and you carve the bottom of your new scion into a long, thin wedge. Then, you slide that wedge into the split, so, once again, the green cambium lines up on one side. The natural spring of the wood pinches it tight, and you seal the whole top over with wax so nothing dries out. Simple as that. But for a brand new fig, honestly, just root a cutting and skip the knife. Which brings us to the kiwi, and I want to be square with you about this one. The kiwi is the big league vine of the 4. It is vigorous. It grows like it has somewhere to be, and it needs a strong support to climb, a real sturdy trellis or an arbor, not a flimsy stake. It also has a rule the others do not. A kiwi needs a male plant and a female plant to ever make fruit, because the boys and the girls grow on separate vines. The female makes the kiwis. The male just makes the pollen. So when you graft a kiwi, you are grafting a known, named female variety onto a seedling rootstock, using that same whip and tongue or cleft cut in early spring. And you have to keep a male vine growing somewhere close by, or your beautiful female will flower her heart out and never give you a single fruit. If you are up north where it gets truly cold, look for what they call a hardy kiwi, which handles the frost far better than the big fuzzy grocery store kind. A yard helps this one the most, I will not pretend otherwise. But folks do grow a hardy kiwi up a strong balcony rail, so it can be done in a pot if you give it something serious to climb. Now what if you miss that spring window and your rootstock has already leafed out on you? Do not throw in the towel. There is a summer version of grafting called budding, and it uses just one single bud instead of a whole stick. In late summer, you take one plump bud from the variety you want, sliced off with a little sliver of bark behind it. You make a small notch in the bark of your rootstock, and you tuck that one bud right in, lining up the green line the very same as always. Then, you wrap it snug, leaving the bud itself peeking out, and you seal around it. Come the following spring, that one little bud wakes up and grows into your whole new top. Same idea, one bud, one season later. It is a handy backup to keep in your pocket. And you might be asking, how long until I actually get fruit? Here's the happy part. A pear you grafted often gives you its first real fruit in 2 to 3 years, instead of the 7 you would wait on from a seed. Figs and grapes can come even faster, sometimes the very next season once the vine is settled in. That first year, your graft is mostly just growing, putting on a foot or two of fresh wood and getting strong. So do not judge it by fruit in year 1. Judge it by that new green growth pushing out above the tape, because that is the graft telling you it took. That, right there, is a plain stick you joined with a knife, deciding to live. I still find that a little bit miraculous every single time. Before we get to caring for it, let me save you some heartbreak and name the handful of ways a graft goes wrong, because it is almost always the same few. The first is a dull knife, which crushes the wood instead of slicing it clean, and crushed wood cannot heal. The second is a size mismatch, where the 2 green lines never lined up, so nothing ever got the chance to knit. The third is letting the cut dry out in the wind before you sealed it. The fourth is grafting too late after the rootstock has already leafed out and spent its spring push. And the fifth is forgetting to rub off those low shoots so the rootstock quietly starves your new top from below. Notice that 4 of those 5 come right back to that same green line, keeping it clean, keeping it matched, and keeping it from drying out. Steer around those 5, and you are most of the way home. All right, you have made your cut and joined your 2 pieces. Now let me talk about the aftercare, because this is where patience does most of the work. First, seal every open cut. Any bare spot where you can see raw wood is a spot where the graft can dry out, and a dried out graft is a dead graft. So dab sealant on the scion tip and anywhere the tape does not cover. Second, wrap firm, but do not strangle it. You want good, tight contact holding those 2 green lines together, but you are not trying to choke the branch. Third, put a little label on it with the date and the variety, because in 3 months you will not remember, trust me. And fourth, watch below the graft. The rootstock will try to send up its own shoots down low, and those shoots will steal food from your new top. So anytime you see a shoot popping out below the graft line, just rub it off with your thumb. Then you wait. In a few weeks, if it took, the buds on your scion will swell and push out little green leaves, and I promise you that first leaf is a feeling you do not forget. Remember that green line I keep mentioning? We are finally there, and it is the whole reason any of this worked. Here it is, the thing almost nobody explains. Under the bark of every branch, wrapped all the way around like a thin green sleeve, is that living layer called the cambium. It is the only part of the plant that can grow new cells and heal a wound. The wood in the middle is dead plumbing. The bark on the outside is a dead raincoat. The only living dividing tissue is that one thin green line in between. So when you press your scion against your rootstock, the entire job, the whole secret, is getting that green line on one piece to touch the green line on the other. When they touch, they grow into each other. They build a bridge of new cells, and the 2 plants become one for good. When they miss, even by a hair, nothing heals, and the top just slowly starves. That is why the cut has to be smooth, and the knife has to be sharp, because crushed cells cannot knit. That is why the wrap has to be firm, to hold those 2 lines pressed together while they heal. And that is why you seal it. Because if that raw green line dries out in the wind, it dies before it ever gets the chance to reach across. Line up the green, hold it tight, keep it from drying. Do those 3 things, and a graft is honestly hard to fail. That is the whole magic, and now you can see it too. And that is the whole idea, one green line at a time. If today got you itching to grow your own food for almost nothing, that is exactly what my book is for. The 30-day kitchen scrap garden protocol walks you through 31 plants, day by day, starting with things sitting in your kitchen tonight. It is still just $17, down from $47 one time for a grocery bill that keeps on shrinking. Grabbing it takes about 10 seconds. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time, there is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. So there it is, pears and kiwis you graft, figs and grapes you can often just root from a cutting, and every single one of them comes down to lining up that thin green line and keeping it from drying out. Tell me in the comments which of these 4 you are going to try first, the pear, the grape, the fig, or the kiwi. I read every single one. And next time, I'm going to show you how to turn one single grocery store sweet potato into a whole basket of free plants. More starts than one balcony can hold. Don't throw it away, grow it. I'll see you next time, buddy.